I think it is a different moment. I mean, I've been doing work in police reform and accountability in some capacity for 15 years, and frankly, there are some people who I'm good friends with, and even family who, yeah, it was really only in the wake of George Floyd who started asking me really substantive questions about the work that I do. I think that a much larger part of the American community has become much more aware of not just the issues related to police violence, police misconduct, and issues of race, but to really substantive issues related to why it is that we still keep talking about police brutality, about police misconduct, why it's an issue that remains with us. I think that people's awareness of some of the structural impediments to police reform, like police union contracts and the like, are things that I think are just much more in the popular press and have sort of tumbled out into discussion. So I think that it's a different moment in terms of not just the rawness of the feelings and responses engendered across lot of different communities, but also just in terms of people's engagement and knowledge level on some of the specific dynamics and issues that are bound up in police reform. I think it's also a I think it's also a moment where different types of people are reaching um, the same type of different fundamental conclusion. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of different sort of talk about what's necessary right now with respect to policing. Some people say that policing as we know it should be abolished. There's the defund movement. There are folks who believe that not much needs to change. That we need to support our police officers even more, given the current dynamics, and in some ways double down on how the world has looked. But what's interesting across all those camps, including that last camp, there is general agreement that as a society, we have asked police officers to do too much and to do things that they aren't well equipped or well trained or well resourced to do. When I go into police departments and talk to, for example, police union officials who tend to be very supportive and reflexively supportive of police officers and the status quo in many ways, they will agree that we ask their officers to do too much, to do things they shouldn't do in terms of responding to a variety of social issues. Police officers are called really as in some ways the last stop when the rest of the social service fabric has broken down. Some people talk about the police being sort of the tip of the criminal justice spear, and that's right. There's nowhere else for the police to push problems, so they often have to engage with them. And so there are a lot of things that police officers do, and it's not obvious that they should be doing. Like being the first responder to individuals who are experiencing a mental or behavioral health crisis, but not posing a threat to anyone else. Police officers respond to burglary alarms. In many jurisdictions, they take vehicle accident reports. They do welfare checks. They really do a whole bunch of different things that are squarely related to community well-being, but aren't necessarily related to even law enforcement or policing. And so I think that this particular moment across a lot of different um, uh, kinds of conceptions about what the entire solution might be or look like, there's a common consensus, I think, that has emerged that part of the problem with policing is that policing does too much. And so, one thing that the Policing Project NYU has been developing a lot of research and resources about and helping jurisdictions think about implementing as a process of reimagining public safety, when we look at providing for public safety, are there things that don't require an armed police response as a first response? And if there are, what are the community resources, the governmental resources, the social service organizations that can step in and respond and help people address issues and problems in a way that can resolve those issues and problems, but not necessarily involve law enforcement? Um, that seems like it is something that not only do a lot of different types of people from disparate ideological positions agree on, but it seems like a way that we can actually move the needle to reducing the volume of law enforcement interactions and then reducing the likelihood that there are going to be situations that become problematic. So I think that what we need to do is, in a thoughtful way, have some substantive conversations in each community about what public safety is in that community and what role police officers can play, and how that role may be different than we have assumed it to be in the past.